Hello everyone. In today's video, I would like to share with you a concept that you may have heard of before. This is a concept of whole brain thinking. And to demonstrate you this concept, I'm going to draw a very simple mind map and also will share with you my personal profile after I've been tested according to whole brain thinking theory. So first of all, in this piece of paper in the center, I'm just going to draw a circle, and this will be our idea of the whole brain thinking. The interesting thing is that, according to this theory, there are 4 distinctive types of thinking. And these types, they not only have names, they also have assigned colors. So the lower 2 that will be represented here in the lower part of this diagram will be those type of thinking that are going on in the ancient parts of our brain. And these are types that they call relational, and the other one is practical. Those 2 types of thinking also have their colors. Relational was assigned a red color, and those colors, they don't really mean anything, but they just help you to remember So relational type of thinking is more around feelings. So people who prefer thinking that way, and this preference is more on an intuitive way, they really concern more about feelings and other people. And maybe that's why they have a red color. Another thing that is associated with this, of course, emotional. Musical. And sensory. And let's draw some people here to remember, as this is a mind map as well, that this type of thinking is about people and feelings and emotions and music and sensory. Practical. Practical has its own color, which is green. I don't know why it was assigned green. Maybe we'll find out together. Practical. And I think the most obvious characteristic of people who prefer to think in the practical way is structure. They structure They prefer to have a structure everywhere. They also sequential. The sequence of events or ideas is very important. And those people are usually very organized. And I think when you're organized, it means that you're punctual and, of course, reliable. But anyone can be reliable, so I won't put it here. Although the thing that I will put here as the fourth characteristic is conservative. People who prefer to think in this practical way, they usually conservative and stick to something that they know works. That's a bit difficult to create any pictures about that. So I would put something like a list of tasks, for example. So they would be people who go into the shops with a list and will stick to that list. Sequential may be something like when something is happening, what is going to happen after what is very important to people who like to think in this practical way. And now we're moving to the top part that is actually something that relates to the upper parts of our brains, our hemispheres, and these types of thinking are experimental and analytical. The colors that were assigned to them were yellow to the experimental, and analytical is blue. And these two types are very interesting as well. If we're talking about people who prefer to think in experimental way, then of course for them it is important to experiment, meaning take risks. So those persons are very risky. They are also visual. So those people would like to see things rather than hear them. They are a big picture thinkers. They like to see the future of the things, the impact, and the big picture. They like to see a helicopter view, let's say. And something that is following from the big picture thinking is synthesizing. So those people would prefer some nice pictures of something that may happen in the future, maybe some graphs. They like to take risks, and they think big. Those people would also appreciate some surprises. So, if we take the practical thinker who is conservative, then the experimental thinker would be the opposite. He would be very keen on trying new things. And the analytical is the fourth one. What do you think analytical is? It's all about the numbers. The illogical, the critical, analyze things a lot. Facts are very important. And for people like this, numbers, budgets, and graphs would be really important things. Of course, no one is 100% one or another. But the interesting part of this course that I took and the test that I took was actually about realizing how we're all different in how we are thinking, but also how we prefer to communicate information or to get information from others. So this course and this concept teaches us to take into account different styles of thinking and target information considering those types. If you want to communicate to someone who is an experimental person, you would speak a language of pictures. Let me draw you a picture. Let's imagine this is what they would like to hear from you. And draw them a picture. Let them know what is going to happen. Be as visual as you can. If you're talking to a person who thinks more on the relational side, then you would talk to them about feelings, about how this will make people feel, how this something that you have this great idea about make other people feel, how wonderful they will feel after this. The practical people would probably like to know the information like, when is this going to happen? How are you going to do this? What thing after what is going to happen in this project? So if you want to have them on your side, all information have to be very structural and assigned with dates and times. And for analytical people, it will be really, really useful to see the graphs and figures. Let's say this project will increase the productivity of our team, or it will increase our budget, and give them numbers and let them see the graphs, projections. This is something that they would like to know. And of course, for those people, there should be logic behind everything you talk to them. Knowing all of this, it's very important to understand how to communicate with different people. And I think when we understand that there are those 4 types and we all have a mixture, of course, of those all 4 types, then we may be able to understand some people better. Because, of course, if you are an experimental person, but you have to work with someone who is practical, there may be some conflicts between you. But knowing what those 2 people need from each other will actually improve communication. The same with analytical and relational. The people who rely on feelings will probably not get on that well with people who rely on numbers. And that's why you need to understand how the communication works between those 2, and then be open to try those different ways of communication. So this was my little description and some information about the types of thinking, the types of leaderships, models, and concepts. And now I want to share with you my own profile. This is my own profile of all brain thinking. And you can see that, of course, there is a scale on each of those 4 preferences. And mine was all around those 3. The logical component was on 70. The practical component was also around 70, and quite high on the emotional, relational component, over 80 even. And not enough from my point of view on this experimental quadrant. I am actually the person who sticks to what you know, to what I know, and don't usually like to experiment. But from this amazing concept, I also found out that we all have access in our brain to those 4. And it is our own preference what we use, and also it's a matter of habit. So I decided to use more of my experimental potential and actually try to experiment and risk and think big. And that really helped me in my communication with colleagues and even with my friends. And if you want to hear a little description of that, I can read it to you. So this will be a description for someone with analytical, practical, and relational dominance. It's actually quite common to have the combination like this. This is a triple dominant profile featuring 2 primaries in the rational mode, both A and B quadrant, and the 3rd primary in the C quadrant. a secondary preference in the D quadrant. Characteristics of this profile are analytical, critical, and quantitative possession of A, with controlled, conservative, structured, and organized processing of B. Combined with this are the interpersonal, emotional, and spiritual aspects of C. Distinctly secondary but usually functional are their integrative, creative, and holistic characteristics of D. This profile is relatively well balanced, yet clearly the descriptions of the D quadrant are secondary. Occupations that are typical of individuals with this profile include professionals and managers of a technical nature, such as engineering, chemistry, manufacturing managers, and managers with a high administrative content of their work, such as hospital administrator and human resource executives. Work that is considered most satisfying includes accomplishing, analyzing data, making things work, building things, establishing order, attending details, working with people, being part of a team, and solving customers' issues. Most comfortable communication approaches may include well-articulated ideas presented in a logical format. So this is something that myself, as this type, would like to get from other people. Step-by-step unfolding of the topic, explanation in writing, empathy for the listener, but may overlook visual and overview long-term objectives. For myself, I find really difficult to write different summaries or synopses. Even with my book that I wrote, it was very, very difficult for me to write a synopsis of the book. And I think it is exactly this synthesizing component that is not well used in my brain that I actually need to use more. The most natural problem-solving strategies include, so this is how I most commonly solve problems: value analysis, gathering facts, a step-by-step process timeline, team process, asking for others' input. This is something that I use quite a lot, and I really feel satisfaction from working with other people on projects, but may not consider meditation, new ideas, sketching. Never consider meditation. To make a decision, a person with this profile may ask, do I have all the facts? How will others be affected? Will I be in control? But may overlook the big picture, unusual possibilities. And this is something that I would like to work on in this next year, in this year actually, to work on my yellow and increase it quite high, so I have more creative ideas and even some unusual things on my channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something new even from this. If you've ever done this test, it's called the Herman Whole Brain Model Test. Share with me your results and let me know your experience with this program.